How's it going, guys? Welcome to the FPL View, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you the team that I'm using heading into the opening weekend of the Premier League season. This is the team that we are going to be using on that first week of the Premier League. If you have any different opinions, or maybe you feel a player should be swapped in for someone else, let me know down in the comments and your reasons for that. The first player in this team is Leno. Now, this could be a controversial choice in goal, but Arsenal did manage to keep a fairly high amount of clean sheets last year. Not as good as some other players like Martinez for Villa or Edison for City, but still fairly decent. And they've also managed to strengthen their defence this year, bringing in Ben White, who is also included in this team. So maybe pushing for a higher clean sheet and maybe a few extra points from that. On to the substitute keeper. Now, this guy is used in a lot of teams, possibly the template goalkeeper for Premier League this year, which is Sanchez for Brighton. Now, he is cheap, even cheaper than Leno at 4.5 million. Has quite a high points as well, only something like 80 below the highest points last season. Managed to keep 10 clean sheets last year, and is definitely a solid option if you don't want to spend a lot of money in this position but also want someone who's going to get you points. Okay, so we move on to the defence, and as you can see on this defence, we do have two Arsenal players included as well as Leno, which is definitely a risky option considering how weak they do sometimes look. The first one of these, however, we're going to be looking at Tierney, who didn't get many high points last season due to an injury. Should be back this season looking fit and healthy, and is someone who likes to get forward with quite a few chances created. Managed 4 assists and 1 goal yet last season as well, along with that injury, and finished 12th out of 171 players in creativity. So as long as he can have a fit season, a full season, should be picking up some high numbers here. Moving on to the other Arsenal centre back, we have Ben White, who is coming into a new team. Not sure whether he will be playing first team football yet, so again, maybe a risky option here. You would have thought, though, for 50 million, Arsenal would be looking to play him pretty much every game they can. Arsenal also not in Europe, so maybe focus more on the league, just giving him more points in the Premier League. Could also be picking up more clean sheets due to that commitment in the league and not playing as many games in Europe. Ben White definitely gives you some value. Only a cheap player, but still decent points, 104. Finished fairly decently amongst the other centre backs last year, so this one I think could be a good shout. On to the third centre back in this list, and we're moving on to Ben White's ex teammate Lewis Dunk. Now, this again I think is a solid option. Lewis Dunk, most goals by a defender last year. Always seems to be picking up quite a few goals as well, and is definitely a solid centre back. The Premier League website, which deals with the stats, actually gave Lewis Dunk a 2 out of all the defenders in terms of threat. So for a defender that's looking to get some more points, maybe scoring the goals, I think Lewis Dunk is probably the best shout here. On to one of the more expensive defenders here with Robertson. Robertson comes back into a Liverpool team with a fully fit team now with Van Dijk back, so possibly stronger there. Robertson actually got the most points by a defender last year, also picking up 8 assists, which was the fourth most by a defender. Could also be picking up more assists this season as he does take the corners for Liverpool. And while Liverpool had a weaker team last season, he did actually manage to still pick up 12 clean sheets. So if Liverpool do come back into full form, surely he's going to get more points here through clean sheets, maybe more from assists. Looking to pick up the most points by a defender for another year. For the last defender, we've gone for Connor Cody. This one, there was not too much reasoning behind it, apart from the fact he did get the highest points last season for a player of that value. Still a strong option, will maybe come in to the team over one of the Arsenal players when they have a harder game. Managed to pick up 1 goal and 10 clean sheets last season, so there is still some value there. Still picking up a fairly decent number of points, definitely not as high as some of the more expensive centre backs. But for a player who's not too expensive, this is a pretty decent shout. We move on to the midfield, where I think we've done a very solid job here. First player we have got into the team is Fernandes. possibly in pretty much every team this season. Highest points by a midfielder, also takes penalties and free kicks, which Man U did seem to get a lot of last season. Possibly could be getting quite a few again this season, you never know. Also ranked number one in influence, creativity, and the ICT index, which just shows how strong a player Fernandes is. Man U's first three games, they have Leeds, Southampton, and Wolves, so definitely a possibility of picking up quite a few points in the first 3 weeks. Also managed to pick up the second most assists and the third most goals in the league, so high points pretty much all round, 4 goals and assists. If you're not taking Fernandes, then I think you're doing something wrong. The next midfielder, we have Son, who, again, a very solid midfield option here. Both of these players quite expensive, which is why I think we've done well to get a solid midfield of fairly expensive players. And our Son was the third highest ranking midfielder, so with Fernandes and Son, we've covered 2 out of the top 3 there. Ranked 5th on the ICT index and had the second most goals and assists behind Kane for Spurs. Now, whether Kane stays at Spurs and is able to link up with Son again, we'll have to wait and see. But for now, I think Son is a solid option for goals and assists. And there's a reason he picked up the third highest scoring midfielder last season. I think we just need to see what Tottenham do with their transfer business. But surely Son, who has recently signed a contract at Tottenham, picks up more points again this year. The next midfielder is again another very good option with Jack Grealish. Again, transfer speculation around him. Whether he'll go to Man City or not, another one we'll have to wait and see. And I'm not sure how that will impact his points and assists if he does go to Manchester City. But while he's at Villa last season, he did pick up the highest rated Villa player. Also second for goals and assists, only behind Ollie Watkins, and also picked up the fourth most assists in the league. A player that definitely draws fouls in and is sometimes on the free kicks for Villa. Again, options for points through goals and assists and creativity. A player that does like to drive forward when he's on the ball, looks to make something happen every time he's on it. So I think the 3 midfielders we have so far definitely have a lot of value in terms of points. We then move on to Rafinha, who, again, another player I think you could argue there are some alternatives. Jack Harrison being one, another Leeds player. Gone for Rafinha purely because Leeds do like to attack, scoring a decent amount of goals last season. Be interesting to see whether they can replicate that coming into the second season of them being in the Premier League, or whether they'll do a Sheffield United. Rafinha did manage to pick up 6 goals and 10 assists last season, with only Harrison and Bamford picking up some more. A player that I quite like and think he can and has the potential to replicate that this season. As long as Leeds manage to continue where they left off, I think Rafinha is another solid option, a bit cheaper than the other midfielders we have taken here, but still someone that can get quite a few points. Now, the last midfielder is someone who was pretty much done just for the monetary value, a cheap option in Lees Malou. Norwich recently signed him, and Norwich back in the Premier League again. Could get some game time for Norwich. Fairly congested midfield for them, but someone who did look good. Possibly on set pieces, so maybe some points from not too much data on Lees Malou, but someone who does get forward quite a bit and has the possibility of maybe scoring a few or assisting some few. But yeah, this one definitely done just for a cheaper option, and out of those at that value was someone who looked like he could play if he needed to. Now on to the last 3 players with the attackers. The first one we're looking at is Ollie Watkins. As I said, with Jack Grealish, who finished second with goals and assists behind Ollie Watkins, meaning Ollie Watkins did have the most goals and assists for Villa last season. Also picked up 168 points, which in terms of the attackers was the 4th highest. Villa also recently signed Emi Buendia, another solid creative player. So if Jack Grealish does stay there, you're looking at Grealish and Buendia both providing for Ollie Watkins. Watkins, another player I think a lot of people have taken. And with Villa playing Watford, Newcastle and Brentford as their first 3, it's looking likely that he will be picking up some goals. Also had an ICT threat ranking of 1 out of the 61 strikers, meaning that, yeah, he does have the potential to score quite a few goals. Playing 2 of the 3 promoted sides, I would be looking at him starting game week 1. definitely getting quite a few points in the first 3 weeks as well, so a good shout for a player there. On to the second striker with Mikel Antonio. Now, West Ham last season obviously had a very good season. Whether they can continue that now they don't have Jesse Lingard, who was helping them massively, we'll have to wait and see for that one. Antonio did pick up 118 points last season, so 50 fewer than Ollie Watkins, but still a good option. Has played in the Premier League a while now as well, so definitely has the experience there. West Ham played Newcastle, Leicester, Palace, and Southampton in their first four. So you take out Leicester, you're looking at three fairly favourable fixtures for West Ham and a chance for Antonio to just start scoring some goals and picking up the points. For the last player and to complete our Premier League fantasy team, we've gone with another very good striker with Patrick Bamford. Bamford, who picked up the second highest points last season at striker and was the fourth top scorer in the league, proves why he could be another good option. Definitely going to be looking at fixtures to see which strikers we are going to be playing. I think we definitely will be playing Ollie Watkins and then deciding between Antonio and Bamford. Bamford probably looking the stronger of the two, but like I said, will come down to fixtures and we'll have to see who's playing the easier team and decide on the day. So that's going to be it for the first video on this channel. I hope you have enjoyed and it's helped you pick your Fantasy Premier League team. If you have any disagreements on who I've chosen for my team, like I said at the start of this video, put it in the comments and tell me your reasoning behind it. And until the next video, I'll see you all in a bit.